energy start to come down, sink down right into the base of your spine. And feel your connection with the earth. Feel how your sitting bones touch the floor or the blanket or whatever you're sitting on. Yourself rooting down through that seat, growing tall up through the spine, out through the crown of the head. Take a couple of deep breaths. Feel the breath expand. The belly moves out as the breath moves in. The rib cage expands in all directions. Crown of the head lifts up. So you're expanding out, front, back, and sides. And we'll start with the sound of Om 3 times. Take an inhale to begin. Gently opening your eyes. So we have moved through the first 9 verses of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which took 3 sessions. So we move very slowly. Catherine, it's your first time. Are you familiar with the Hatha Yoga Pradipika?
I've never read it before.
Okay. It's
I just know it's an old,
very old, few thousands of years old. One of the foundations, or the foundation of most Hatha Yoga that we know in the Western world. So it treats the physical aspects of the practice, but in a much deeper way than we're used to. So usually when we think of that, we think asana practice. Or maybe we expand that to think pranayama as breathing exercises, and those things are included in here. But it also gets much deeper into sort of the philosophical effects or benefits of those physical practices. So takes it a lot deeper than the physical and physiological. So we're still very much in an introductory sort of section. Like I looked ahead, and it really not until verse 17 that we start to get into the actual physical posture. So it'll probably be a couple more weeks of like this intro sort of idea about what the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is before we get into the practices. So Jess has kindly made these chant sheets for us that you have. So what we like to do first is chant the verse in Sanskrit a couple of times, and then we'll start to get into some of the commentary on what it means. So feel free to listen or to read and follow along. So I'll break it down a little bit, and then we'll start to string it together. So I'll do a word or a verse, and then you repeat it after me. Ashesha Pataptanam Samashraya Matohata Ashesha Yoga Yuktanam Madaraka
Yuktana Madaraka
Amato Hatha.
Amato Hatha.
This is a tough one, these are long words. Start string them together as best as we can. Ashesha Tapa Taptanam.
Ashesha Tapa Taptanam.
Samashraya Mato Hatha.
Samashraya Mato Hatha.
Ashesha Yoga Yuktanamata.
Ashesha Yoga Yuktanamata.
Dharaka Mato Hatha.
Dharaka Mato Hatha.
Ashesha Tapatanam. God, the words are so long. Let me repeat that one. I'm going to do the whole line each time now. Ashesha Tapa Taptanam Samashraya Mato Hatha.
Ashesha Tapa Taptanam Samashraya Mato Hatha.
Ashesha Yoga Yuktanamadharaka Mato Hatha.
Ashesha Yoga Yuktanamadharaka Mato Hatha.
Good. Let's try it all the way through, twice together. Try to break down in your mind as if there were slashes between some of the syllables. All right, let's try all the way through together. Ashesha Tapa Taptanam Samashraya Mato Hatha. Ashesha Yoga Yuktanamadharaka Mato Hatha. Good job. So we realized there's a couple of translations. The one from this version, like a house protecting one from the heat of the sun. Hatha Yoga protects its practicer from the burning heat of the three tapas. And similarly, it is the supporting tortoise, as it were, for those who are constantly devoted to the practice of yoga. That sounds a little cryptic, doesn't it? Let's see what our Swatmarama version has to say, or our actually Mukti Bodhananda version. He's the one who does the commentary. Okay, so his translation is, for those continually tempered by the heat of tapa, the three types of pain, spiritual, environmental, and physical, Hatha is like the hermitage giving protection from the heat. For those always united in yoga, Hatha is the basis, acting like a tortoise. So there's a lot of different stuff here. Sometimes usually it's more similar. So like a house protecting one from the heat of the sun. So here is translating it as hermitage, and it doesn't say anything about the sun. Protects its practitioner from burning heat of the three tapas. So here it doesn't really say what the tapas are, and here it describes the tapas as pain, which, do you know a different translation for tapas if you've been practicing yoga?
Discipline.
Discipline. Okay. Austerity. And heat. Tapa also means heat, but so they describe it as heat in both, but as pain in one as well. And similarly, it's the supporting tortoise. So same idea of the tortoise in there. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of trying to figure out what all of this is about. So all of this now is just commentary. That's the actual translation of the verse, and now this is commentary. Through the practice of Hatha Yoga, one's entire being is made strong, fit and strong, as a shelter from the effects of the pains which come in life. So notice too, it's saying one's entire being. It's not just saying the physical body, so mental, emotional, all of the bodies. The Sanskrit word tapa has two meanings. One is to heat, the other is pain. So as we just said, there are more interpretations than that, austerity, discipline. Pain itself is a type of heat. It tempers and heats the mind, emotions, and physical body. So because this translator chose to interpret it as pain, he kind of gets a little deep more into what pain he's talking about, which maybe wouldn't have come in the other translation because I don't use that word. So we'll just go there because that's what this commentary is. Pain is of three types: adhyatmik, which is spiritual; adidevik, which is natural or environmental; and adibhautik, which is physical. As long as we feel the separation from our true identity, we will always suffer spiritually. So we talk about this a lot in yoga philosophy, this idea of the separation of our true identity. So because our spirit is encased in this physical body, we've kind of forgotten that we are the spirit inside of it, and we've become over-identified with the vessel of the body itself. So that's where we get this feeling of separation from who we really are. So that's a form of spiritual pain, for many reasons you can imagine, to feel encumbered by the physical body, or to feel trapped even by the physical body. And then there come the mental attachments to our attachment to the physical body. Right? So you can see already perhaps reasons for that tapa could mean pain in this situation. Adhyatmik tapa is that which comes from living without realization of the inner being, and it is essential so that we strive for a purer experience. So I like that, right? So that pain has a purpose. It's not just, we don't just suffer because we have this understanding or this feeling of separation. There's a purpose in the pain. The pain is there to drive us to get beyond the pain. So it's like it's programmed in there for a purpose. If you at any time feel free to jump in and comment or ask questions. It's our forum here. Pain brought by natural circumstances is also unavoidable. The course of nature always brings some climatic or geological imbalance, such as flood, drought, earth tremors, winds, storms, etc., which affect the balance of the body's functions and generally disturb the normal functioning of life. Business is affected, crop growth is affected, and so are many things. So this is happening so much lately, the more we have global warming, or better referred to as climate change, the more we experience this, the more you see it in the news. We just had a tornado watches the last couple of days almost over the entire country. Huge thunderstorm warning today. I mean, you're getting stuff on your phone telling you bad things are happening. So it's, it's true. It disrupts a lot of stuff, and everybody's texting each other all over the time. Are you okay? I heard there was a tornado there. Was it near you? So we can see how this environmental causes of pain as well. Third, there is physical suffering. Nature continually tests the body, sometimes by an imbalance of bacteria, sometimes by accidents, or sometimes by mental and emotional shocks. Therefore, it is essential that the Hatha Yogi prepares himself, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and psychically, in such a way that he can remain unaffected by these three types of external tempering. interesting, again, another reason. I mean, all of these things happen in and of their own, right? Natural disasters just happen, right? How they happen to affect me or you or anyone, you know, then it becomes personal to us. But that thing is going on with or without us. So the idea behind all these three types of pain is that, or the idea behind Hatha Yoga preparing us for these, is that instead of us getting completely caught up in the mundane situation of whatever worldly thing is going on physically, environmentally, or even spiritually, instead of getting caught up in that, it teaches us to retain a core, to our center, which is unmoving. So it's like a bicycle wheel. Actually, that's what that syllable yuk means. It's Ashesha Yoga Yuk, and then it goes on. Yuk is like the center of a wheel. So the whole wheel spins around, but that axis in the middle remains, it's the whole, right? And then the wheel spins around it. So that's the idea here, that we learn how to be centered in our true self, so that the painful things that go on around us don't necessarily draw us into them. Do you want to say something?
Not necessarily. Well, I'm just, and wheels inevitably turn. But I think a word that comes to mind is like challenge. Pain. It's weird to wrap your head around the word pain, because it sounds, I don't know, it's not always a negative thing. Like you're saying, sometimes it can bring on strengths that you didn't know you had, or but the other thing is that it just connects so much with balance poses. Like you can have complete balance and not have any trouble standing on one leg in a tree or in some other half moon or something. But then if you turn your head and look up or something, it's way harder. So you've kind of thrown your own challenge into the mix to gain a better sense of stability. I don't know, I was just picturing that while you're talking.
That's all of that is really great. Yeah, I'm having trouble with the word pain too. I think maybe it's just because in our American culture we've made it a negative term, and it's not necessarily. I think sometimes people refer to it more as suffering, like there's a purpose behind suffering. I think challenge is probably a word that I would use more also. So yeah, I mean, it's Sanskrit, so it's not an exact translation.
Yeah, I was wondering what language, I mean.
Yeah, so, and this is the idea too, is like, what talks to you, what we connect within it, and that's the purpose behind the satsang too, is, to discuss it and sort of flesh it all out.
What did you say yuk means?
Yuk is like, it's like centered in, is what it means. Yeah, it's a good little word. It's from another chant, and it's like centered in joy is what this other, where I remembered it from, this other chant.
Because what's funny is in balance poses like that, if you think about it too much, you'll fall over.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to what you said about balance poses. It's a perfect metaphor, physical example of what they're talking about here, and also about how the yoga practices help us. Because if you're a beginner at asana and somebody tells you to stand on one foot in tree pose, or to stand on your forearms in forearm stand, that's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to be all over the place because you don't have the tools yet. But the longer you practice, the more tools you get. You learn about drishti, about your gaze, where to place that. You learn about ujjayi breathing and how to use that. You learn about your bandhas, your locks, how to use that. And the more you learn about these things and the more you put them to practice, the more balance you're going to find. So it's definitely preparing us to retain our balance no matter what's going on. And then the last thing you said I liked too is like, a teacher will throw you a lot on purpose. Like once you're in your perfect balance, the teacher will say, now try closing your eyes. And you're like, oh my God, like you're lost then, and you get thrown off again. And then the purpose of that is to try to get you to hone your skill, to hone your tools even more, so you get subtler and subtler with the practice. And then eventually, if you close your eyes every day when you do tree pose, you will be able to do it with your eyes closed.
But it's not always a physical achievement, or sometimes just the mind frame that you're in that allows you
absolutely. And that's another lesson about staying centered rather than getting caught up like in your mental tribulations or your emotional ones. You know there's a huge difference when you come into yoga class feeling great, how your tree pose is compared to if you're really upset about something or, you know, really angry or whatever. So.
Or if you're just mad at tree pose.
Yeah, in the moment, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How often does that happen? You're in a pose and all of a sudden you think, I hate this pose, or, you know, why is the teacher making me do this? And then you fall out of it.
But don't they say that's where yoga begins, too, though, right? When you're just like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Oh,
And that it ties right back into this, yeah. Like when you feel yourself getting caught up in the pain or the challenges of life, that's where the real yoga practice begins. It's not anything about what happens on your mat. We practice here, not even just symbolically, because it really goes deep into us on a cellular level. If you learn how to balance in your physical body, then all of a sudden when you go out into the world and you have emotional tumult or whatever it is, all of a sudden that translates into life. And
other people, even if you're not and other people are, it's just doesn't disrupt you.
Right.
And you can actually be more helpful.
Right. Absolutely. First it starts with you, and then your presence helps everyone else too.
And not to slow us down.
You're not slowing us down. This is what this is all about.
But the other thing came to mind while you were reading was that last time we were talking about removing limitations. And then these challenges are kind of natural limitations that are, so I'm kind of picturing like your being trying to expand out to the, to the whole universe and achieve enlightenment, but then these limitations are kind of like the counterforce in a way.
In a way.
Or not limitations, but challenges that are naturally occurring.
Everything is on so many different levels. Like on one level, yeah, absolutely. Things that are meant for us to go beyond, for sure, break the limitations of the challenges. But also what you said, we studied the cities last week, the superpowers, and we kind of had some trouble with the concept of making ourselves as large as the universe, right? But the universe includes pain and challenges and suffering.
Right.
So it's like encompassing it at the same time as trying to break through it, which leads back to something you said probably in week 1 about Shiva and Shakti, right? That Shiva is a representation of spirit, or of Purusha, the potential for creation, and Shakti is the representation of Prakriti, which is the manifestation of creation. So energy versus matter, really. And Jess had said that she heard it said that ultimately, like we always talk about Shiva and Shakti uniting to create wholeness or balance. And then Jess said she remembered hearing that Shiva's ultimate goal was to actually break free from Shakti. And that makes sense too, and it also makes sense in the context of what we're just talking about. Like there is different aspects of it. There's a merging of it and then overcoming of it at the same time, or at different stages, if not at the same time. That makes sense. That's what I love about all these teachings. Like all of a sudden, all the dots start to connect, and the more you learn, the more the picture starts to fill itself in. It's like you take a little pencil and you make dots here and there, and all of a sudden you see the picture, and it's like, oh. Good, very good. Right. The body and mind should be structured in such a way that they remain unaffected by the mundane circumstances of worldly events. In this way, the body/mind, which is kind of how Buddhism refers to it, body, or mind, heart, too. In this way, the body-mind becomes like a tortoise, which can extend its limbs when necessary, or retreat into the protection of its hard covering shell when threatened. So that's why we have the tortoise imagery here. It's, whenever like something like that is thrown in, like tortoise? What are they talking about a tortoise for? Yeah, like you have to really go into contemplate what that word is, and all right, let's examine what is a tortoise. You know, it's got a hard shell, it moves slowly, retracts. So, and then that reveals a lot about, you know, metaphorically about what the practice, what the verse is about. And the limbs are symbolic of the external senses, which should be externalized when necessary, but which at our command can be internalized and unaffected by the external happenings of the world. To perfect this condition, Swat Marama advises us to practice Hatha Yoga, because this will enable such strength and control of the body and mind. So we know this idea of turning the senses inward from the Yoga Sutras. Does anybody know what limb of, there are 8 limbs in the Yoga Sutras, and this is the in-between limb between the lower chakra practices, or the external practices, and the higher chakra practices, or the internal ones. You know what that limb is, or what that word is? Good.
Pratyahara.
Pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses. So normally in our daily lives, you know, 99% of the time, we need those senses to be going outwards to make sure we don't run into walls. And you know, if you have some sort of impairment, a hearing impairment, a vision, you know how challenging that is, right? So the senses are always like, their job is to collect. But when we want to turn our focus to our spiritual practice, we're in a protected environment, we're in a room where it's okay to turn that off, right? So we can turn them off, but we're just not used to turning them off. So then we have to train ourselves to, like the tortoise, to pull it all back inwards, and then to explore inside with that. So that's what this metaphor is kind of pointing towards. The symbology of the tortoise is very significant. The creation of the world we know is said to rest on the tortoise. It is an emblem of patient endurance. According to Hindu mythology, when dissolution of the universe started to take place, the earth lost its support and was threatened with destruction. Lord Vishnu came to the rescue and manifested in the form of a tortoise, supporting the earth on his back. Thereby the earth was saved. I'm sure you've heard of other legends from other traditions that include a tortoise. Right? You know any of them?
I can only think of the tortoise and the hare.
Me too.
Yeah. Native American tradition, Mayan tradition.
What is in the Native American tradition? What is?
That the earth is symbolized by a tortoise in their tradition, and that like the limbs are the north, south, east, and west. And in Mayan mythology too, the tortoise, there's a whole mythology based around the tortoise being the earth. Yeah, so it's interesting that different cultures and religions and philosophies share similar symbologies. It makes it even more significant then, because it's in a universal idea, not just something particular to a certain group of people.
Oh, those turtles have been around.
Yeah, ancient, yeah.
We've seen a lot.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because they lived for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course, this legend is not meant to be taken literally. It is the explanation of what happens during the process of creation and evolution. That's what in the Native American and Mayan mythology, that's what it explains, creation and evolution. Both externally and internally, and a movement back to the center of being. As the individual consciousness moves closer to the real self, the supports on which the mind is dependent, that is to say, the senses and sensorial world, become less influential. Consciousness can fall into a void if the mind completely dissolves without having a base to fall back on. Preservation of the mind and body must take place when the consciousness moves into higher states. The senses must be conditioned to retract and extend at will. So that's pretty deep, right? This is really what this whole book is about, right? It kind of throws off the higher states of practice, the 3 different states of meditation, and says that's, way out there. What we need to do, we need so much preparation in the physical, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual bodies before that can happen. So let's just focus on how to do that. So this idea of withdrawing the senses, it sounds, and that's kind of like the upper end of where this book leaves off. It leads us through practices that will train us to be able to withdraw the senses, because it's a pretty difficult thing to do. Right? If you've had any moments of meditation where you have a moment of space or of non-thought or of emptiness, then you have an experience of what it is like to withdraw the senses. Because when that happens, you are not looking around you or listening to sounds or whatever it is, right? Your senses are completely withdrawn in that moment, and then you're absorbed into that space. So if you've had a little taste of it, then you know it's possible. And the more you practice it, the more it will happen, and the more you'll prepare yourself for the higher states.
But then you realize they're in that space and you think about it.
And the senses, right, because the senses are so wild. They're like wild horses, that you can train them for a moment, and then they're going to break away again. So it is just like breaking a horse, It's like you got to stay at it and be disciplined, have tapas. You have to be disciplined and keep practicing, and for a long time. These are all things that are said in the Yoga Sutras as well. But then the results are guaranteed if you stay with it, with all those things, plus your intention. Intention is really important too. Okay, so if we want to learn how to control the senses, we can. Good. So that is pretty much the end of that verse. And we have a little bit of time left, so instead of diving into the next one, why don't we practice withdrawing the senses? And we do just maybe like 5 or 10 minute meditation. So let the practice be, instead of thinking about it as, we're going to meditate now, let's think about it as being pratyahara, as being a training of the withdrawal of the senses. So I'll talk you through it a bit and then leave you in silence. But when I do leave you in silence, keep doing the practice yourself. Keep reining it in, reining it in, reining it in. Every time you have a thought or the physical sensation or whatever, just let it come, let it go, and remember, oh yes, I'm practicing withdrawing my senses, and then just bring them back in. Let whatever it was that distracted you go. Go ahead and be comfortable, whatever position makes you comfortable in the body, so that you are not distracted by the body. And it's helpful to have a nice tall spine while you're practicing. You want to find some spaciousness in the physical body. So let the tailbone reach down, maybe tuck under slightly. And then imagine lifting up out of your tailbone and creating a little bit of space in between each vertebrae. So you're lengthening, you're growing taller as you move up the spine. And just draw the chin in ever so slightly. Find some length through the back of your neck. And then reach up through the crown of your head. Imagine you have a loop on the top of your head and something's hooked through it and pulling you up towards the ceiling. So you're lengthening up and you're lengthening down at the same time. And just gently move your shoulder blades towards each other and allow the tops of your shoulders to relax down. And tuck your bottom ribs in slightly so you're not sticking your chest out, arching your back. Let your belly be soft. So as you inhale, allow your belly to expand. And as you exhale, just allow it to contract naturally. No need to exaggerate. And then start to visualize your rib cage expanding in all four directions, fronts, back, left, and right. And at the end of every inhale, imagine that expansion staying and just the belly contracting to exhale. And as you inhale, breathing in between all of the ribs, just the way you breathed in between the vertebrae. And keeping all that space as you exhale. Forehead is relaxed. The eyes are soft. The nose, cheekbones are relaxed. Allow your jaw to release the tension, relax. The tongue is relaxed in your mouth. Allow yourself to feel the temperature in the room, feel the air conditioning that just came on. Notice how the temperature feels against your skin. You hear the sounds in the room, the sound of the air. See if you can detect any particular scent in the room. And now draw all of those senses even deeper. So use your mind to scan your physical body. See if you can feel your blood pumping through your veins. Maybe you feel it as a pulsation. See if you can hear the sound of your blood pumping through your veins. the energy inside. A subtler pulsation or a vibration. Keep your focus there inside of the subtlest vibration you can find. And whatever draws you out, let it go. And bring your focus back to that vibration.
just makes my sense of time change a lot. Like, a lot of days I don't realize how much time has passed if I'm really drawn inward. So I'll meditate for a longer time in that way.
First I thought you meant in the moment, so I checked my clock to see how long do you think that was from the time we closed our eyes to now?
Well, 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I know it wasn't very long, but I felt like I can't even remember what you were talking about when we were going into it, you know. It seemed like.
But you said it's different, like the time thing, like it was 15 minutes.
Was it?
Yeah. So it's different.
Really?
Yeah.
I just sat there for 15 minutes.
Wow.
That felt like 5.
Yeah. So and then
Yeah.
other people might, because it was probably working for you. You probably were withdrawing your senses, because when you have the experience, it's such a wonderful experience that you don't want to leave it, and you go to a timeless space where you're not distracted by everything around you. You're not worried about what time we're going to get out of here and where you're going to go afterwards. But if you're struggling with your pratyahara, if you have if you're in a if you're not trained enough to let go of whatever's bothering you in the moment, if you're emotionally upset, or if you're having a physical pain or whatever it is, then that 15 minutes might seem like an hour to you.
So I feel like I don't have a whole lot of trouble letting go of things, but what I have the most trouble with is that I have a little, it's almost like attention deficit's creeping into meditation, but if I'll hear the door close, like there was a lot of door closing, I'll hear it every time, and then I'll think, okay, let go, and then I'll just think of the last few things that you said, like find a vibration or something, and I'll guide myself back the way you guided me there to begin with, but I kind of feel like I go like that.
That's just the nature, that's absolutely the nature of it. But you're doing like exactly how you practice pratyahara. It's like you learn methods for turning the senses inward, and then when you get lost, you go back and you pick up that tool, and just exactly the way you did. And you said, okay, follow your breath, or look into the vibrations, yeah. And then the more you do that, the easier it'll be, and then maybe the next time you won't hear the door close either.
I think maybe that's why I felt like it was shorter. Like in a way, even if I was getting to the right place, I was still struggling with it in a way, or it feels like I don't know.
Until we become perfected, it's going to be a challenge.
Oh yeah, I'm new. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time. Unless, who knows, maybe you've been practicing for many lifetimes and you are just ready to, blossom into samadhi right now. It's entirely possible. And it's, if you don't have a problem letting go, then that's probably exactly what's going on, because that is so hard to do for most people, to let go of whatever it is, their thoughts or what's going on in their physical body. So if that's easy for you, you've probably been doing this for lifetimes, and that's how far you've gotten already. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with all of you guys too, like the instructors. I just really listen to because I know that I'm new and I don't know, and so I need a teacher. But I just really listen, and a lot of times different cues will, like you said, I think it was you. One time you said, picture like a really tiny miniature version of yourself someplace like on the tip of your nose or something. That really works. It's really weird.
For you,
Yeah.
And I mean, back to what you said, always, yes. We all need to turn to teachers. That's what we're doing here. Like, this is self-study, svadhyaya, turning to a master. And we all need to do that. And that's how it's like, well, this worked for me, so here, you try it. And then the idea is, if that works for you, you keep it. If it doesn't, you throw it away. And you use a method that does work for you, that might work for you, but not for Jess.
Yeah, the cues definitely make it a lot easier. Like, I don't know, sometimes at the end we'll say, like, whatever, if you have a thought, acknowledge it and let it go. And I kind of picture it Even if I didn't catch it, there's some thought I was arriving, and I just let it go like a subway train, like through the wind.
Yeah.
And it just
Imagery
move on.
imagery is so helpful.
It's
Whatever
cool.
it is, a subway train, a cloud, or whatever helps you.
Very quiet subway train.
Yeah.
Like
That's
a
great.
butterfly.
That's very good. Good.
Well, cool. I'm glad I made it.
Yeah.
So we won't be, if we come next time, we'll be just doing the next verse or the next two?
Yeah, we just start where we left off and we get as far as we get, and it goes on like that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's all own together to exit out. Alright, so we'll do 3 rounds like we did to start. See if you can feel the vibration inside, not just of your voice, but inside of the sound that comes through your voice. Take a deep inhale. Teacher and all living things. Om Bolo Satguru Bhagavan